Okay.
Two of my books. I need to have my books. My favorite.
Welcome to the Lazy Life. This is the Bespoke Lazy Project. Today we're going to be talking about pad stitching. We're going to do some demo stitches. And yeah, we
You
want
are on the show.
Powered to go ahead and get started with your pad stitching. Okay, here's my piece. What's the upper collar?
How do I say the chats?
It should be,
I see it. Comments.
yeah. It might just not be anybody in there. Right.
Okay.
There's only 2 people so far. So
Let me see.
a couple minutes so let people join.
All right.
So which collar piece am I supposed to be stitching on? The undercollar, right?
Okay. Yes, you are supposed to be stitching on the undercollar.
Okay. When you
Why?
cut this out, do you do a seam or you just do it flat? Like,
Well, okay. So when you do your pad stitching for your undercollar, what you want to do is after you cut it out, you want to cut it out on the bias because I see that's got a bias gray line on it. You want to make sure you cut off the seam allowance. So the best thing to do,
Mhm.
instead of using the pattern piece to cut out a full piece, is to make yourself a template. Make a copy of the collar with your pattern piece on a piece of paper or um, a piece of cardstock or whatever. Then, right, you want to copy your collar, and then what I would do is trace around the collar with the seam allowance, take the seam allowance off, and then cut it off of the template. And then you have it to fit on your collar. And then all you have to do for your collar on like the sides or the top is just lay your template right there, match it with the lines from the top, the sides. Like you don't have to trace out the whole seam allowance on your collar piece.
Okay.
So you can make yourself a template because you definitely want it to only be the actual uh, pattern piece. I mean, the pattern piece without the seam allowance.
And when you cut it out on the canvas, do you cut it on the grain line? So do I cut it on a bias?
No, the canvas is cut on the bias as well
Okay.
for the under collar. Yes, and what that helps when you start doing your padding on your collar, that makes the curve around the back of the neck, um, which is it's the drop.
Mm-hmm.
It just adds a nice little curve right there when you take your collar and you turn it down. When we start shaping it with the pad stitching, the it curves nicely around the hand.
And I have a lot of questions.
Oh, that's ask away.
The canvas piece. So I'm gonna cut on the bias, but I'm gonna cut it as one collar piece, not with a seam in it, right?
You can do with a seam. It doesn't matter. It just depends on what the pattern piece is. If you want to do it without a seam, you definitely can do that.
Okay.
And then if you do it without a seam, just takes out the bulk.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that because my wool is a bit more fine. And yeah, so I could just cut the seam allowance out that part.
Mm-hmm. and then you just cut the seam allowance off, and then on your collar you know, do what you need to do. You can pad stitch, and then too, you can pad stitch with the collar sewn on or with the collar not sewn on. It's it's up to you.
Mhm. Hello, is that Miss Avis? Hey, Miss Avis. Hey, RV. If you haven't already, please make sure you like the live. So we're going over how to, I guess, get your pieces. Oh, we lost something here. How to get your pieces for your canvas. So what I learned, if you just stepped in, was that one, you should make a template. So that's what I did. Instead of like using the pattern piece, I used the pattern piece to create a template, and then I cut off the seam allowance. And this piece is supposed to be on a bias. This is the under collar piece, right? Everybody should have two-part collar. Oh, let me put you back on the stage. Everybody should have a two-part under collar. So I'm going to kind of make mine on the fold. Not really because it's a bias, but I'm gonna make it one piece. I took the seam allowance off the back, and I'm just gonna trace it on here. But you can have a seam in there to keep it easy.
Right. You can have a seam or you can do it without a seam. If you do it without a seam, then you're minimizing a lot of bulk.
So that's what I'm doing. So, Auntie Karen, you could talk about like what materials do we need for the pad stitching process?
So for the pad stitching, what you're going to need is, depending on the type of fabric, you're definitely going to have to pay attention to the size of the needle that you have. And I was just playing around today on some Ponte, and I would never put canvas on Ponte knit, but I did notice that the needle that I was using was too large. And if you use a needle that's a little bit too large for your fabric, when you try and do your pad stitching and picking up the fabric underneath, if the needle is too large, you're going to be able to see the thread. So you want to make sure you get a needle that's good for the fabric that you're using. So if you're using a a thicker wool, then you can use a needle with a little bit larger shank, like a medium needle. I don't recommend that you use anything too thin or something that you would use to sew like a button on a dress shirt, because it might be too thin. So um, I have another needle here that I played with, and this one worked for the fabric that I have. So what you want to do is you want to be able to pick up a couple of threads on your fabric, and it should go through nice and easy without damaging your fabric. So if your needle is too large, you'll definitely be able to tell.
Is that
And then you want to have your thread. When you pad stitch, you want to make sure that it's something that you'll be able to see. If you have enough of the fabric that you're using to stitch your garment, you can use that. If you have a silamide thread, then you can use that. The silamide thread is the wax coated thread. But you definitely, whatever thread you use, you definitely want to run that through some beeswax or some thread magic. You have to have your thread waxed, because if you don't, it's going to make the process tedious and painful, pretty much, because you already have to do a lot of the stitching. So you need to make it easy on yourself and make sure that you wax your thread. If you're using a regular polyester all purpose thread, that needs to be waxed, or else it's going to knot up the whole time you're using it. Definitely want to do that. So Can I go ahead? You ready for me to move forward?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm gonna cut out my collar, my under collar.
Okay. So I have a demo piece here, and on my demo piece, I have a piece of canvas, and it's basted to this is some Ponte on the background. This is a project that I'm working on. So what I did was I skip basted the canvas on top of the Ponte. So what I did was I just went around the perimeter so I could do my sample pad stitching in the middle. When you put your canvas on your collar or on your lapels, you can baste around the edges, maybe about an eighth of an inch around the edges to keep it on. You're going to need something to hold it onto the fabric. If you have a thicker wool, you don't need as many basting stitches because the hair from the wool will attach itself to the canvas and it kind of holds it in place, almost like Velcro. So you want to baste your canvas onto your collar, and then you can baste all the way through. These are stitches that are going to come out, based all the way around. And when you baste around the collar, don't you want to be at least anywhere from an eighth to a quarter of an inch from the edge, because um, that's literally just there to hold that in place while you're doing your canvas stitching. If you're working with a collar that has a bottom piece or an extra piece that you stitch onto the bottom, let's say that this is the top of the collar, then you have a piece that almost looks like an oval, almost looks like the shape of an eye. If you have a collar that has that piece on it, it's actually stitched to your undercollar and it makes a complete undercollar. You can run a basting stitch just below that stitch to hold that piece as well. And that's the piece that it actually puts the line on your collar, and it's where your collar actually folds down. Let's say this is the back of the collar. So that piece is usually what we see right here. And it's not, it's part of, it's called the rise. So it's right on the rise of the collar. And then the back of the collar is the drop of the collar. So usually the rise and the added on rise piece kind of looks like an eye. It's shaped just like an eye. That gets pad stitched as well. So practicing, you can practice pad stitching, and I'll show you guys how to transition from one row to the next, to the next, to the next. And actually, it goes a little bit faster than you would think. And then, depending on the area that you're stitching, will determine the size of your pad stitching. So, if you're pad stitching, and your pad stitching in this area just right here, then your stitches will have to be a little smaller just to accommodate the space. If you're pad stitching in this area right here, then your pad stitches can be even going up, even going down, going up. So as you move around your fabric and around your collar, when you get to smaller places, you can use smaller stitches or shorter stitches in the padding. It doesn't have to be all the same. And if you mess up and get one out of whack or whatever, that's okay. Just continue your rhythm. And the pad stitching is nothing but diagonal basting. I'm going to show you guys. Here's some sample pads that I did. These are some samples. One, then you come up and you come here, then you go across and you can go down, and I'll show you guys how to do that. And then you can actually see, once I got my rhythm, and this is not the thickest, you can see I noticed that my needle was too large, and this is how come you can see these stitches. But when I switch needles, you can see here that if this was a piece of wool, these stitches here would hardly be, you could hardly see those stitches. Actually, I have to pull them up really close for you to see. These right here are not penetrating the opposite side of the fabric. So I was able to kind of catch some threads even on ponte. It's not nowhere near as thick and as girthy as wool is. So also pad stitching is put in the garment to, it kind of assists canvas. So the canvas is in to add some structure to what would be an extra drapey. You can see this ponte is extra drapey, but when we add the canvas, it's adding some structure and some stiffness to the fabric itself. So what the pad stitching is going to do is going to take that fabric and it's going to help it form. So the trick about pad stitching is not the actual stitch itself, is getting your finger underneath, and your finger is going to do two things. It's going to help you shape the fabric when you're stitching, and it also is there so you can feel the needle. If the needle is penetrating the other side of the fabric, you can actually feel it. If you can feel the needle, then you need to come up a little bit and grab that stitch. Grab that couple of stitches on the fabric underneath. Now, when you're grabbing a stitch on a pad stitch, you can see my pad stitches are probably about maybe about a quarter inch, maybe 3/8 of an inch long on here. But I only snatched literally about an eighth of an inch of fabric and then completed my pad. So you don't have to catch this whole length of fabric. You just need to catch a couple of threads in the beginning of your stitch and then bring it through and you'll be good. And like I said, pad stitching is diagonal basting. If you can see the diagonal stitches, when we turn it to the wrong side, the stitches are like ladder stitches, one over the other. You can see one over the other. And I'm going to do a couple of samples just to kind of show you guys. And what I'm going to do is I'll pad this area here where there's actually some curve. So we can just kind of act like this is a piece of the collar.
So when you're padding, let's say you get to the kind of part of the collar that bends,
Mm-hmm.
you how do you hold it on, like are you rolling it on your hand as you're stitching? You know what I'm saying? You
Right.
understand?
You're actually going to be, and what I'll do is I'll bring the camera down so you guys can see my hands. You're actually going to be kind of rolling and stitching at the same time. Then the rolling happens because you're keeping yourself from dropping the fabric. It's
Okay.
kind of a muscle memory, natural reaction type deal. Make sure you have some small scissors so you can clip threads. And whenever you get ready to do any kind of stitching, you need to make sure that your thread is not super duper long.
Okay, guys, if you're wondering what I'm doing, I'm just tracing my template on here so I know where to base my canvas at. Probably not necessary, but that's what I'm doing.
All right, let me cut this. I'm going to cut off this excess fabric because I don't need it. I don't need it.
Good to see you too, Angela. Is this the jacket we were talking about the other night? Yes, Miss Avis. This is the jacket. Okay. Does canvas have a wrong side? Not really, I guess. Huh?
No. Mm-mm. No wrong side or no right side, unless only if it's fusible. Then the fusible side is the wrong side. That's what has to. But if you have regular canvas that's sew in, you won't have a wrong side. So we're going to act like this is my collar here. So we're going to make sure that we cut the seam allowances off of the canvas because we don't want that extra thickness when we stitch everything together. So Shamir, if you want to kind of give a look at yours, And Shamir is using a template that she created from the pattern piece. And what you want to do is copy your pattern piece and then cut off the seam allowance all the way around on your copy. And then
Yep.
after you copy, you want to base your canvas on anywhere from 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch all the way around. Just do a skip based all the way around the canvas to hold it on to your fashion fabric.
I already got a knot. Look at him.
All right, I'm going to flip my camera down. That was a work email at 7 o'clock at night. Why do they do these things to me? I'm not going to answer it, but they just give me so much anxiety. Because I feel like, I don't know why I always feel like I should be answering these questions, but they're invading my privacy too, you know?
Yeah.
All right, so when you're sitting, and I'm sitting on a stool, so I'm a bad example. When you're sitting and you're hand stitching, if you can cross your leg or cross your leg is like a table for your stitching, and then you just kind of want to put the fabric right on your index finger, right where you're going to be doing your padding. And then you want to start. I think I'm gonna start. I want to finish what I started. I'm gonna finish what I started, huh?
Brooklyn said if she get a commercial, she will watch the replay. Okay, Brooklyn. I don't know if the commercials are on or not.
Commercials on YouTube. I
Mm-hmm.
mean StreamYard.
Yeah.
Oh, they have the commercials like Twitch.
Yeah, basically.
I didn't know that.
If you're monetized, you can do the commercials.
Okay, I'm making mine a little longer. Okay, so I went in, and the first stitch starts coming from underneath. You can. I just kind of looped mine through right here. Right here, I just kind of looped mine through. There was no special. I didn't go all the way under. I just kind of looped it through. So now I have a thread coming out. Can you see it? Let me see. Where's my? There we go. I have my thread coming out from underneath.
So you made a knot?
Yeah, I just made a knot. And then I just went through and brought it through. Now, when you do your padding, what you can do to keep it nice and neat is when you come out, just line it up to a stitch that's already there. And you can see I did that here. These stitches are kind of even. Now, if you want to uneven them a little bit, or you're trying to squeeze them in an area to make them a little bit more on the horizontal, you can definitely do that too. But mine are even just because I had enough room. So it really doesn't matter if you make them even them out, or if they're a little off because you're trying to fit them in a small area, that's okay. All right, so what you want to do is when you get that first stitch in, you want to go down on the opposite or on the diagonal and then push the fabric through. And that first push is where you grab a couple of threads and bring it through. And you can see my thread starts. Wait a minute, let me put my glasses on. I'm doing this without glasses. That's not good. All right. My thread starts here, and here's my thread coming out. Then I went down to the diagonal from that piece, from that thread, and went underneath. And when you pull it, it's going to make a diagonal stitch.
Okay. So come through No.
So what you're doing is you're drawing a diagonal line with your needle and thread. So when you take your needle down and you put it through, it's going to be opposite the top. So if your thread starts up here, that second needle is going to go in right here, and then it's going to go across. Pull it out, bring it down, stitch, go across.
Where do you start? Do you start in the middle of the project or on the top?
I usually start on the edge. So if you're working on a collar,
Mm-hmm.
I usually start on the small edge. And then I'll go down, like say this is the small edge. I'll start up here and then I'll go straight down. And then I'll come over and get this area right here. To get the smaller areas first. Then I can come in and finish the middle of this piece and come all the way to the edge.
So you
So
saying you start.
right, you want to go the long way. So if the way you're holding your right, the way you're holding it, your stitches should be going vertically if you're holding it the long way. If you hold it this way, you'll be doing a whole lot of pad stitching rows, but you want to do it vertically because we want to be able to take those rows and roll them back.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So if we're doing them vertically, we're going to have a whole bunch of vertical pad stitches, and that's going to interrupt the roll line.
Okay.
Okay.
Roll it over my index. Do-do.
No, roll. You're going to be rolling it in half. Roll it like you're going to be wearing it.
Up. So
So if this is my collar, I'm going to turn it this way because my collar is going to be rolling this way on my neck. So take your collar and do it right. That's how you're going to be doing it. All the way down the long, you're going to be traveling down the long edges of the collar, not the short way.
okay, so I'm going to stab all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
Knot. And then do I come back up through that knot?
Mm-hmm.
Now you can draw your rows, right? You can take a marking tool.
Sure can. If
Oh,
you want to mark, if you're new, let me do some marks here. I really used to do that when I first started. I was just so nervous and so angry. And I was like, "All right, I don't know, get this wrong." Yeah, you can draw some lines, and I'll show you guys if you want to draw. So
now
I just drew 2 chalk lines on my fabric. So you can draw lines, and you can just do your pad stitching right in that area. So I'm going to draw some lines around the ones that I've already done. This row here, and then this row in here.
now when I go back diagonal, this is when I just pick up a thread, right? I don't pierce the fabric.
Right. You pick up a thread underneath, pick up a couple of threads underneath when you go into the new diagonal, and then you're going to go straight, take that needle straight across on a 95-degree angle. And when you first put that needle in the fabric, that's when you're going to be piercing, picking up some threads. And then you can bring it all the way through. And then just keep that hand under there. Went all the way through.
Okay, wait. So you start low, right? Go in, make to secure your knot. Come back out by the knot. Then you go up and you grab a couple stitches.
Grab a couple stitches. Now you see I'm getting ready to start another stitch. When I start my second stitch, this is where I'm picking up my extra. This is where I'm piercing the canvas and the fabric. Then after I grab a few, then I'm just bringing my needle through the canvas. It doesn't matter if I don't catch any right here, but I just need to catch some there in the beginning. So you only need to catch a little bit of the thread coming through.
Okay, I'm probably doing this wrong. Let me just
Do about 3 or 4 of them, and then you can take a look.
Well, I'm gonna start over.
Anybody got any questions out there in pad stitching canvas land?
You know, I think I need to start from the other end.
Oh yeah, you got to make sure that it's comfortable. So if you want to start from the other end, you can do that too.
Because you have the bulk of the collar towards your body, right?
Right.
Okay, so I have
Like
the
it's just you're gonna have it on your hand just like it was on your neck. That makes sense?
yeah. What I don't understand is where does it disappear and come back out? Where does it disappear?
What do you mean? Where does it disappear?
Cause like it's like just little scorches, so it has to go be hidden at some point.
Oh, it's gonna be hidden when you pick up those. You mean you're talking about the threads underneath?
Yeah.
Okay, here's a good sample. You can see my needle coming through. This is where the needle should not be visible. See these little bitty stitches? They're nowhere near as big as the pad stitches on the front. Do you see what I'm saying? So you're only picking up a little bit of thread. As soon as that needle pierces the fabric, that's when you're picking up your little bit of threads and then you're bringing it through.
Okay, look at mine. So there's my little knot. Then I went through. Here's my tail. Where does this go?
Where does, wait a minute, let me, probably would help. Okay, where's the beginning of your stitch?
There's my knot right there. And then
Okay. And then you got, now you're not, you want to take your knot, go, you want to come underneath. You look like you were over. Were you over? You should be coming from the underneath. See, I see your stitches visible at the top. When you start, you should not have any lines that aren't diagonal. So now you're not, you need to take another slip so you can come up. You should be coming out of the fabric. Your knot is on top of the fabric.
you mean so it should be on the like on the fashion fabrics on the good side?
On the right, it should be on the underside. So since mine is here on the top, you can see my knot right here on the top. What
Yeah.
I did was I picked up a thread and I came back out through so I could come out on the top.
Okay. Let's start over. So the knot should be coming from down here.
Should be coming from the bottom, from underneath.
Okay. That might be one problem.
And then even if you don't want to come under the bottom here, you can just kind of lift up the canvas and go through the bottom of the canvas. Okay. And then when you come out, that's when you do your diagonal. You should be making your needle should be a diagonal from your first stitch.
And then it's just coming, that's when it's gonna pick up a little thread and then
Little
come back.
thread, and it's coming through on a straight line, on a nice horizontal line. And once you pull it through, then your diagonal stitch forms. Perfect.
That's right.
Now, what you do is take that down a step
Okay.
where your needle travels out, and you're just going to go down diagonal to the
So do
next
I go under the canvas?
under the canvas and through under the fabric, and then straight across. Under the fabric, under the canvas, under the fabric, straight across with your needle.
But how did you get down a step? That's what I'm confused about. Yeah. How did you step down?
Okay, here's my exit, right? Then I just take my needle and I put it in a diagonal of where it's coming out. So take your thread and lay it on a diagonal and you'll see exactly where your next stitch should go.
I
See
think
my thread?
I came out the wrong place. Okay, let me go back in. Okay. Here. And then here. And then oh wait, I'm supposed to be picking up a little sign.
Down to
Oops.
the next.
And then woo. This gonna take me all year. Okay.
Takes a little while to kind of get used to the rhythm. And now pad stitching, when you get ready to pad stitch, it's always a good thing to, if it's your first time, definitely a good thing to have a perfect thread color match. Then that way you don't see the threads on the bottom of the lapel when you're done.
Okay.
Normally I have my hands in my lap.
I
It's
got
so much easier. Yeah.
I got two, y'all. Oh, they asking you to do the stitch on screen. Like they want to see what you're doing.
Okay. Actually, I can probably do it here. So
The entire
here's my exit coming out the bottom, right? Now, if I take my thread and I take my thread and go and lay a diagonal, taking my thread, lay a diagonal, now I know where my next stitch goes, right below the one that's already there. So that's where I put my needle. Okay, so let me pierce my needle
so
right
you're
in there.
traveling under the canvas.
Huh?
So you're traveling under the canvas.
Under the canvas, yes.
That's crazy.
Under the, when you go under the canvas, I have my needle starting in the diagonal where my thread is exiting. And I'm going under the canvas and also through the fashion fabric. And this is where you grab a little bit of fashion fabric threads when you go underneath. And that's where your finger comes into play. If you, so you can say, oh, wait a minute, I felt that. You just need to grab a little bit of fashion fabric and then you can come through. So now I'm pulling my piece through and you'll see the diagonal form as I pull it through. These are a little wonky. If you have some that are a little wonky, that's okay. You can just keep going.
Just keep going. Just keep going.
Just keep going.
Mine might be too far apart though. It's giving basting.
That's okay. If they're a little far apart, that's fine. But then you'll get kind of used to, if you draw yourself some lines, and that first row is always what the challenge is going to be. But then when you do the second row, you have that first row to use as a guide, where to match up that second row of stitches. You can see how the second row of stitches are matching right there. So you can use that first row as a guide. And I'm going to go down and I'm going to put a few more in here. And then I'll show you guys how to change in the opposite direction. The bottom of the area that's to be pad stitched. Once you get down to that edge, you want to pad stitch as close to the edge as you can, but don't go past your hand basting that you use to hold the collar down, or that you hold the lapel down. Ponte knit, and I think it's like all the rubber in the world is in this thing. Normally you get a piece of Ponte that don't want to act right, don't have no flex in it at all. Nowhere.
Keep your needle from like when you're going under the canvas. Maybe it's just because mine are too big. That's the problem.
Let me see. You think your needle, if your needle is too large,
No, I think
you're
my
gonna
scissors
have,
are just too large, so it's having to travel too far. They're too long.
right, you want to make them a little smaller. You want to keep them little smaller. You can see how they're small, all in the diagonal. Keep them a little smaller. And then they don't have to be super close together, but you can see from the way I was holding it how it's curling the fabric.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm gonna keep this first row like this, and then I'm gonna do that on the second row.
This is some practice. This is our practice.
Oh, that's your practice. This is my $40 a yard wool.
You you're supposed to be practicing, Shamir.
This is
That's
the
the real. You got the real stuff over there.
Mhm.
But you can do it with that. I mean, if you feel like you want to if you want to take them out, that's up to you. But yeah, you can still work on that fabric. But I don't want you to uh, pick at it and pick at it, and then it's starting to fray or to loosen up the threads. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I'm not. I'm not taking it out. Right now.
And you guys can see how my hand is still underneath the fabric, and it's still where I need it to be. You can still see I got my finger under there holding the fabric, and this is what you want to stitch on. This is kind of the part that's a little uncomfortable, that you have to get used to holding the fabric with your thumb and letting it drape over your hand. And as you let it drape over your, excuse me, as you let it drape over your hand, that's when the rolling action starts. Once you start with your padding.
Ah, Brooklyn Timmy said you don't want to see what she was doing. She was zigzagging before.
You guys see how this is naturally rolling on its own. And that just comes from the stitching, pulling the stitching, and then having it draped over your hand. And so when we start stitching the lapel and we're stitching on the roll line, that's when the hand goes underneath where the roll line is. And then you can kind of relax with the finger. You can kind of use a little bit more hand once you get into the area that's larger where your lapel is. You definitely want to use your finger when you're pad stitching near the roll. But then when you get to the other part of the lapel, then you can put some more fingers under there and start padding on on a flatter surface. I
Okay.
did a jacket one time, and I was pulling it so tight, and I wasn't paying attention to the roll line. So when I got done, my fabric was like this. I had to, I had to loosen them up. I was like, I'm not taking this out. And I had to press it to stop it from, it was trying to curl a little bit too much. But I was able to press it so that it softened up on the edge. But I was like, I'm on a roll. I was on a roll. I was in a zone. And I looked up, and it was like Oh my gosh, by golly.
Okay, they saying, are you using in between needles?
In between needles?
That's what Miss Avis asked. Are you using in between needles?
What's in between needles?
Wait, how do I get my finger
How come I don't see the comments?
down? I don't know how
Oh, I
yours is,
do.
but they should be.
I see them. Are you using in between needles? I don't know what an in between needle is. It's
Which
a
one is Avis? Okay. All right, guys, we're only going to be here for about 15 more minutes. So please, if you have questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat. The point today was to try to help demonstrate what these stitches should look like, but you also have your resources. And don't forget YouTube. Sometimes learning from different people or seeing it at different angles helps it make sense. But
There's some good videos out on YouTube about pad stitching. If you put pad stitching in YouTube, there's some good videos in there that you can follow um, that make it a little bit easier for you to understand what we're doing. So let me talk about the transition.
okay.
So when you get down to the end of your stitch, you want to do one more stitch. And I'm going to put that last stitch in there. Diagonal stitch, and the thread is actually coming out the bottom. What I'm going to do is I'm making a little small loop just to kind of knot. It's kind of just a little small loop, and I'm just kind of putting a knot in that loop. Kind of knotting that loop right there. And then I just start on the next row. The fabric, pull it out. Now I'm ready to start diagonal the other direction and on my way up. Stitches just so you can see how I'm now traveling up. Here, I went here, and now I'm traveling up
So you
inside
travel
the lines.
under the canvas.
Right. So when you finish that last stitch, you want to kind of tie it off like a little knot. And what I usually do is just do one little loop just to kind of tie it off, one little loop to tie it off. Then I'm still coming out of the bottom here. Then what I want to do is I want to start from the tie off. I'm going straight under the canvas and I'm coming out on the other end. And then once I go under the canvas, I'm coming out on my other end. Now I can start my diagonals going this way, and I'll be going up. So in essence, what you're doing is you're just bringing the thread over one row, and then you're starting your diagonals, and you'll be going up in the opposite direction. And that's how come when you see pad stitching, they're going kind of opposites, because you're traveling down, then you go across, and then you're going up. So you're taking that thread and you're going under the fabric and pulling it out, and then you're going to start your diagonal going up direction.
Now, how do you keep your finger on here when you get to like the middle? Do you just ball
When
it
you
up?
get to the middle, you just kind of have to, you're going to have to scrunch your fabric
Oh,
and
you
just
just
kind of move it. Yeah. And
Okay.
then put it underneath, put your hand underneath it. And you still using your thumb to hold it. Once you get in the middle, like when you're coming from here, you can kind of squeeze it like this. But when you get underneath it, put your whole hand underneath it, but make sure that your index finger is up here at the top and your thumb is here. So we still have an index finger here.
Okay, girl.
Okay, so let me start off. When you start off, you can definitely start off with your finger
Yeah.
here. Okay, but as you go, just
Yeah.
take your hand and put it under because it's going to start to curl anyway. Just
Uh-huh.
put your hand underneath the curl and then move your thumb up so you're holding the fabric like this.
I'm finna flow with
So
this.
your finger is kind of like a rest where the fabric's going to rest on your finger.
Can we ball it up? Is it
Now, just take the fabric, put your hand underneath the fabric, put your hand underneath the whole collar.
It's on the edge. Okay. It's
Put the collar on your whole hand. There you go. No, not that way. You want to turn it the long way. It needs to be like a sleeve.
okay.
And then take that thumb out there and grab the edge. There you go. Now turn it.
Okay. I'm
And then
back in.
turn it towards you. So you got to keep right. You got to keep that fabric right. If you need to grab it with your fingers, whatever is comfortable, just make sure you keep that finger under there when you're stitching the collar. And you just have to have your thumb, you just have to let your thumb travel on the fabric, and your thumb is what's going to hold the fabric down.
Ooh, child, this is laborious.
It's easier if you're now, see, you have your hands up too high. It's easier if you're sitting in the chair. Sit in the chair and put your hands in your lap. Never see a tailor working on the table unless they're cutting or drawing. There you go. Put your hands in your lap. This is your table right here. Now, is that a little bit more comfortable?
Yeah. This is a
Yeah.
little bit.
So when you wanna do your tailoring, like I said, it's best to cross your legs. I don't know what it is about crossing your legs, but I think it's just because it brings it up a little higher to your face. I can't cross my legs, so I keep my leg like this, and then I use this just like this. This is how I do it. Oh, my thread came out, and then you just work on it like this. And you just have to get comfortable with having the fabric. It might be a little ruffled or like little balled up, just kind of like when we sew and we're putting things through our machine, we're balling it up and we're doing whatever so it'll be comfortable when it goes underneath the presser foot.
Yeah.
Same with the hand stitching, because you know you're gonna press it anyway. You got to press it anyway when you're done.
Yeah.
And when you're done with your pad stitching, you're gonna use a ham or a seam roll. And this is what you're going to do is you're going to press the curves and all of your pad stitching that you did. Use your seam roll, use your ham to make sure. It's best to use the seam roll because the ham you can use on a lapel, but on a collar you want to use a seam roll to keep it nice and tight.
Okay, guys, I can vouch that doing it in your lap is better.
Mm-hmm.
Do it in your lap.
It's much better in your lap.
It's much better on your lap.
Mm-hmm.
Moving a little bit faster in my lap.
Mm-hmm. Always want to do your hand stitching in your lap and keep your leg crossed. It's much easier than working on the table.
Oh, let's see what we got in the comments. Okay, so Miss Avis said it's a sharper needle that quilters use.
Those might be too thick. I know what she's talking about. The stainless steel needles. You might be able to find a kit. Usually when they sell those needles, there's like several of them. If they have the nice one that's thin enough, then yeah, you can definitely use that needle. And those needles are good for skip basting thick fabrics, and then skip basting when you're basting your canvas on, and you're literally folding the fabric back and forth and back and forth. Those are good needles to use. And then you just pull it through, and then you have a full baseline. So just make sure that when you get those needles, that they're not very thick, because those needles are usually used for like embroidery, and embroidery threads. So the eye is much bigger, which makes the shank of the needle fast larger.
She said they're shorter and thinner.
They're shorter and thinner.
Mm-hmm. That's what her last message says.
Oh, then give it a try. Give it a whirl. If it's comfortable for you and it pierces your fabric like you need it to do, then yeah, it's a good needle. So there's nothing like written in the book saying you gotta use this special needle. Just as long as it works with your fabric. That's what's important. You don't want to use a needle that's too big, and then don't want to use a needle too small or too thin, um, because your hands will kind of lose. You'll be dropping it, and I don't know. I have problems with needles that are super thin, unless I'm working on super thin fabric. So just make sure that the needle is equivalent to the fabric. Because when I first started doing this, I was thinking, this Ponte, I'm going to use a bigger needle. And I was having all kind of problems with this needle. And this is a needle that I use when I hand sew pants, a little bit thicker fabrics. If I had a wool, this needle would have probably been fine. But I had to go to a smaller needle, um, working on this. And then you're going to be working with canvas and wool, or and another fabric. And canvas is not a thick fabric, but it's dense because of the horsehair and the weave. So it's a dense fabric. So you want to make sure that you got something that's going to pierce through all of this stuff. Okay. Is anybody or everybody comfortable with the transition? Did you do the transition?
Me, I haven't got that far.
You haven't got that far?
No,
Okay.
I'm about close. I'm approaching halfway.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty slow. Oh my
That's
god.
okay. Take your time.
Oops.
Tailoring is slow, guys. It's not anything fast. And I don't know if you guys if you guys know Ray. He's a master tailor he's on Instagram. As a matter of fact, Ray just posted something about a week ago. He made a new suit. He's on and off of Instagram. Um, I sat and watched him pad stitch one day. He was done with the collar on Instagram live. He was just like pow, 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 pow. And when he pad stitched, he uses a very short, he uses a short thread. So he's changing his threads quite a bit. But it's insane watching him pad stitch. He's so fast. I don't think I've ever done anything that fast.
No, RV, you should use black fabric, black thread.
Black thread. So you want your pad stitching thread to match your fashion fabric. And that is, if you come through the other side, it won't be noticeable. But then you also have to remember, when you're wearing your jacket, your lapel and your collar, they're going to be down all the time. So nobody's going to see that part. And if you're doing wool felt on your under collar, Um, After a while, wool felt is kind of like fur. It'll scratch over the pad stitching, and the threads will disappear. Anyway, just make sure you get little bitty threads. The pad stitching and the threads underneath should be two different sizes. These should be very, very small, and then you should be able to see the actual padding here. And when you get real good, these little stitches right here should be invisible. You should only be picking up a few threads, a couple of threads.
Oh, mine's a little jank.
Wait a
Wait.
minute, let me put the glasses on so I can see.
Okay, some of them I messed up. Right
Oh
there.
no, it looks okay. But now, because you can see those, don't feel like you got to pick them all out. But if you want to pick them out, what I would advise instead of picking it out is taking some of the fashion fabric and a piece of hair canvas and practicing. Give yourself some practice. And then when you practice, it just kind of makes the rows neater and you get the rhythm of how it should be. When you're stitching, you should be stitching in a straight up. You should be sewing the letter Z. That's what you should be stitching when you do your pad stitching. The letter Z. The bottom, the diagonal, and the top. Out. Up. So when you go through is the bottom. Up and poke. Now we're doing the other top. So when you pull it, the letter Z is what's formed. So when you're doing a diagonal basting, you can only see the middle of the Z, but the bottom of the Z and the top of the Z are on the other side of the fabric. So you should be moving your needle like the letter Z, but the top and the bottom of the Z should not be visible on the front side. Does that make sense? I think that's probably a good way to do it.
I like it. I'm gonna take this to Chattanooga and finish it.
Here's the letter Z, and this is your pad stitch. This one should be behind the fabric, go through the canvas. Then when you poke up here, that draws this part and then through the canvas and then out. Then we're going to go up and do it again.
The through the
Through
camera
the canvas. And
part.
so we should be stitching the letter Z. That's how our needle should be forming the letter Z. Then we poke and come through. Poke, and when you get ready to poke, that's when this part of the letter Z will form. The thread does that on its own.
Only did it 3 times. It's fine.
It's in your books on how to hand stitch and how to pad stitch. If you need to watch a video, you can watch a video. So let's do this for the next day or two out on the Discord. Let's put some pad stitch examples out there, some samples of what everybody's doing. And then that way you'll be like, I don't know what I'm doing, or I couldn't, am I going the right way? We'll actually get to see what you're doing. But once you practice and get the rhythm of the stitch, then you'll be able to do it all the time.
Yeah, mine is wonky, but you know, there's mine. They started getting smaller, but you can start to see.
You can see how it's actually making a curve, right? It
Yeah,
makes the curve.
yeah. So, anyways, thank you much. I'm gonna finish my color this week.
Okay. Oh, okay. That's
Yeah,
what I'm talking about.
yeah. I'm gonna finish my collar. Let's see. Carol, do you have a channel? Yes. Put your channel in the chat.
I don't know if I can do that.
Oh, okay. Oh Lord, she gonna knock herself out. I'll do it. I think it's NC 2001. I believe that's what it is. If not, you can type in Carol's Corner. Oh, there she go. Is it Carol's Sewing Corner?
Carol Sewing Corner. Yes.
Carol's Sewing Corner.
And that's on Facebook and on YouTube. And I don't have any pad stitching videos out there. I probably should.
Well, now,
But I'll put in Discord a good pad stitching video. One lady I like to watch, I think she's called the Black Ace or the Black Royal. She makes corsets and she's Russian. She has a really good pad stitching video and it's nice and close up. And she gets to show the pad stitching.
I'll put it in our playlist too. So we
Okay.
have a list here. So
Okay. I like her video. I saw a few. I thought hers was probably the easiest to understand. Hers was translatable and it wasn't so hard to understand. Anybody could understand her video. Some of the other ones, I was like, no, we're not going to put that out there. Some of the ones from like Japan and China, I was like, nah, we're not going to put that out there just yet. But I will link, I'll give Shamir the link so you guys can watch that video. It's really it's a good video. Of the ones that I've watched, I think that one was the best one that I thought would be good to pass on. All right. Do you see any more questions?
No more so just comments. But yeah, so thank you so much. If you're interested for as you get through this step, if you haven't already, make sure you go back after you cut all your pieces and do all of your tailor tacks. Yes, do the tailor tacks. Make sure you have all your markings. And then when you're ready to start this part, review your materials. You can review this this video. Remember, we made a template without the seam allowance, and that's how we cut out our canvas. And knew where to place this so that the seam allowance was.
And you can see how, hold yours up real quick. You can see how nice, if you make a template, see how nice her seam allowance is going all the way around. You want to make sure that it's definitely like that, because when you stitch it together, you do not want to catch that canvas in your seam allowance.
Yes.
Okay. And as if there's anybody going to the retreat, I'm going to the sorority retreat. If you want to, get with me and we'll practice pad stitching there, just let me know. Okay. Yeah. I'll be glad to help you while I'm out there.
Osmosis said they have a question. Go ahead and ask your question, Osmosis. It has to do with fabric.
This time I'm going to look and I'm not going to just have a generic question. If that's okay, that's okay. I'm actually watching.
So while we're waiting on Osmosis, kind of like next steps, remember, if you're working on it, go ahead and put your examples in the Discord so we can see it, your examples, your practice ones. I recommend you practice before you start on your fashion fabric, but I didn't do too bad considering. So
I'm going Thursday. Yes. How do I make silk fitted as it doesn't stretch? I want to make a dress out of silk. Silk is just like any other woven fabric. It has a little, because the fibers are so soft, it will move just a little bit. My thing is, whenever I make a silk garment, I make sure I make it a little bit large, just in case there's a cutting issue. But if you cut it out with sandwich on some paper, then you won't run into any cutting issues. But you want to make sure that it's a smidge bigger. And I mean a smidge. Then that way it'll fit well. It'll move with your body. and it won't be tight. Make sure you do a muslin. Muslin, muslin, muslin. A lot of people don't like that word, but if you're gonna, dive into some silk, go ahead and make a muslin, and that way you don't damage um, your fabric. Don't cut into it just like it's cotton. Make yourself a muslin. Make sure that the muslin fits the way you like it to fit. Then you can cut out. You can even use your muslin pieces to cut out your dress.
And I would add that you want to make sure if you're using a pattern that you use a pattern that probably recommends silk or something like silk. Also, silk comes in different types of like weights and types of fabrics, I guess. So if you're talking about silk satins, charmeuse, Dupani,
Right.
you can get like silk blends with cottons and things like that. So um
What kind of silk actually are you working with?
because Dupani, right, is like very heavy
It's
structure,
very, yeah, it's very heavy. It's very stiff.
but
Um,
charmeuse is very, very slinky. And so
yeah.
get a suitable pattern. Don't try to like make a really
Charmeuse.
dress with a
Yeah.
charmeuse.
So charmeuse is it's lighter. So you definitely want to make sure that the fit on the charmeuse is a little bit bigger because of the weight of the fabric. You don't want charmeuse to be super tight because you'll be like a sweaty mess. So make sure that it skims the body. Do a muslin first. Definitely want a muslin. Make sure you have a little bit of room in that muslin.
Pay attention to your bias because silk is one of those places where if the body's not right, you're gonna feel it twisting around your body and all
Yeah,
kinds of
it
stuff.
will definitely move and twist. So try, and then too, when you're making a silk garment, it shouldn't be terribly difficult. Shouldn't be a whole lot of pleats. It should not be a whole lot of this and that. Silk garments are usually made with simple patterns, um, maybe um, a dart or two, a pocket or something. But if it's got a whole lot of pleats and a whole lot of difficult and a ton of seams, that's not really recommended. Whenever you look at a silk garment or you see a silk garment, it's usually a flowy dress with not a whole lot of seams, maybe a simple bodice and a skirt. Not a whole lot you want to do with silk. Just kind of takes away from the frustration. So, and charmeuse is pretty slippery. So, and treat the fabric. You want to treat it. Treat it before you work on it. It'll take away some of the some of that frustration too. I don't think I've ever washed charmeuse though. I usually take that to the dry cleaners. But if you haven't done that, take it to the dry cleaners and let them clean the whole piece before you dive into it.
Maybe start your and be careful with the steam with charmeuse because it'll misshape, it'll change shapes.
Hmm.
Silky fabric.
Sure is pretty though. So, osmosis, can I just ask you a question? Have you been sewing long? Uh,
Uh,
Take your time. All right.
so she said she a beginner. I don't
She's a
recommend.
beginner. Take your time. This dress, you're a beginner, then this silk dress should take you about a week to make. Just take your time. Please
Oh,
take
she
your
said she studied fashion, so she has some maybe fabric knowledge and stuff.
yeah.
All right. Thank you
Take your
so.
time.
When do you think we should gather again?
After the
Retreat.
retreat, my schedule is open. Thank God.
Okay. So guys,
I
we'll be
mean,
for with the next so what would be like the next skill that we kind of need to talk to? Like, do we need to wait or do like for everybody to
no, if anybody is comfortable with moving forward, by all means move forward.
so like
Um,
doing the chest or the lapel, I guess, because it's all one piece. All right.
Right. If you want to, yeah, when you work on the chest and the lapel, go ahead and baste those in just like you working on your collar. You want to go ahead and get that pad stitching done for the lapel too. If you're going to do the collar, you can go ahead and based on your canvas on your chest pieces, follow the books, and then pad stitch. You're going to mark your roll line with a twill tape, and then you're going to go ahead and you're going to pad stitch your lapel. So if you can get the lapel done and the collar done, then we can concentrate on constructing the jacket.
Now, do you do the chest piece or you just do from the roll line to the end of the lapel?
I don't usually do the shoulder piece or the little chest piece. I just do the whole piece, and then I do the roll line from
So you
here.
do roll stitch. Oh, so you don't pass stitch here.
No, mm-mm. You
Okay.
can, and that stops the chest from collapsing, but I don't have my shoulders are pretty even going across, so when I don't add this piece, it hasn't made, it doesn't make or break me. So you can add the chest guard if you want this piece that goes here.
Mhm.
If you want to add that piece there, you can. But I usually leave it out. For
Okay.
me, I'd leave it out.
If you do that piece, that is on the facing, right?
Actually, no, it goes over the
The front.
full body canvas piece on the top. It goes over that.
Oh, well then there's potential that your stitches could be showing.
For the chest piece, no, because the chest piece is stitched onto the canvas. It's like the chest piece is here. It's like a shoulder piece.
It's like an extra piece you saying
Right. It's an extra piece.
that you pass stitch and then attach in here.
This piece is not pad stitched. Only the lapel is pad stitched.
Oh, this is just a piece of canvas you're telling
You
me.
got it. And it's basted on. Right.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. I get
Yeah.
it. Okay.
Yeah. So the pad stitching is only for the lapel and for the collar.
Okay.
Everything else is just basted on.
It's just based it.
Right. The rest of the canvas is basted.
And it
So
acts
no,
like
we're not padding all this.
and it just acts like a interfacing kind of thing. Is that
That's exactly
the
what
way
it
to think
is.
about it? Okay.
Yeah. So hair canvas is just a stable interfacing, and it stops collapsing of the actual garment. It just puts some structure there. So when you put your jacket on, you don't have to worry about it wrinkling or bending or anything like that. And
If
then when you take it off, it keeps its shape.
if you're doing a chest pocket, and I don't think we have one. No. If you wanted to add a chest pocket, let's say, would you say that would help support a pocket, especially if it's a functional chest pocket, or
Right. If it's functional, it will definitely help up in this area. If you're going to be using it, dropping your phone in it, it'll stop all of that stretching and everything up here at the top. The only thing about functional chest pockets, so for women, is that you have the breast in the way.
Mhm.
That's how come you don't usually see them up here. When you do, they're usually full welts.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you'll throw something in there and it'll be like, so that's how come you usually don't see functional pockets in women's jackets on the top, and then on the inside you can do a functional pocket just right below if you want to add an inside pocket.
Okay.
um
Just to be
that's how
safe.
come you usually don't see them on women's jackets.
Yeah. And when I do see them, because sometimes Vicky Souls will do them, I just make them faux. Because what are we doing?
Right. Exactly.
You really
If you
wearing
don't
faux?
have a flatty patati up here, then that, yeah, that's just adding to the this, and I don't know. I don't want no more of this.
I'm all right. So, all right, y'all. Well, it's getting late on my end here on the east side, Eastern Standard Time.
All
So,
right, you guys.
all right, guys. Thanks so much. We'll be back in a week or so. But in the meantime, practice and put it in the Discord, and we'll toss some reference videos in there for you too.
You're watching. Make sure you practice.
Bye.
Bye.
lightly.